Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Tuesday, July 12th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, new poll numbers show that Joe Biden isn't who the majority of Democratic voters want to be president in 2024. Meanwhile, an inmate in Kentucky is suing the North Point Training Center after his hair was cut by guards in April. We're going to have that story. And then a jury in Washington state found 2 Seattle cops justified in the shooting death of a mentally unstable pregnant black woman.
Plus, LeBron James is launching a sports nutrition company, and Will Smith lost out on some projects after Slapgate, but it looks like Bad Boys 4 is still in motion with Martin Lawrence. We have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Well, negative polling numbers have plagued the president for this last year, but this latest numbers should have him worried the most. Now, 64% of Democratic voters say they would prefer another person other than Biden to be nominated to run for president in 2024. The New Times Siena college poll gives him a low 33% approval rating. Concerns about the economy are taking a toll on Biden's numbers, and with every age, race, and ethnic group around the nation. Biden, who is currently 79, he is the oldest president ever in office. He says he plans on running again in 2 years, but there is a glimmer of hope for the president. In a head-to-head match, he is the only Democrat beating Donald Trump. So the White House is responding to this poll. They said, quote, they're going to go up, they're going to go down, and this is not the thing that we're focusing on. So I don't expect them to say anything else. And then they started to list off a long list of his accomplishments, the bipartisan gun control bill and things like that. So that's very important. But they do have a problem. I think that when you're sitting at home and you're looking at your kitchen table and you're really trying to figure out these bills, inflation is a serious problem. Families are having to choose between groceries and gas and sending kids to summer camps and schools and finding the monies and the bills to do those things. And so I think that is something that they're going to take to the polls with them in November. And so right now, between now and November, they're going to have to figure out a way to alleviate some of this pressure. The survey also found that 94% of younger voters, those 30 and under, do want a younger president in office. I mean, they said that, they quoted this one young lady from the Washington Post, and she said, "I am so tired of old people running the country." So I think they're going to have to kind of deal with those things, those numbers, and how people feel. So, we'll see.
I think, like you said, summer camp, that's definitely an issue. But on top of that, on top of inflation, we have student loan debt, which is a problem for Americans. And a lot of Americans, Democrats, Republican, what have you, don't feel like Joe Biden has tackled that hands-on. On top of the gas is now another issue on top of everything. So I have to pay my student loans off, have to pay this expensive gas, like you said, on top of not having a kid on top of that. It just seems like a lot. And so I do understand how people in America right now could feel like this is not our president. But I want those who feel that way about Joe Biden to think back to what we had to go through with Donald Trump. And I feel like if we give up on Joe Biden, Donald Trump is going to enter in there. And because we think like, okay, well, if we give up on him, we'll have another great Democratic person that'll come in. But no, I feel like Donald Trump is sitting in the waiting room right now, waiting for Joe Biden for the Democrats to drop the ball. And then we're going to look up and have a situation like we did a few years ago.
I agree. And you got to think about Donald Trump is 76 years old himself. Exactly. So if we want to talk about age, if we want to go on that road, we can bring that up as well. But, you think about the list of things that President Joe Biden has done. What about the things he hasn't done? And that's what's really going to hurt him for the midterms, especially right now with the abortion Roe v. Wade that's going on. There's a lot of issues hanging over his head, even as simple as a $20 bill that we still haven't got that changed. And that could be takes no time to get done, right? I look at some other percentages right here. At the end of the day, they're saying Biden, 33% cite the president's age is the most important reason. We do understand the young generation, right? They want someone young, but you have to understand this game and understand they have to be seasoned for this position, right? Because who else would it be if it's not President Biden?
I thought about that. Who else could it be? But I do know that a lot of younger people, they have more progressive ideas that they want in office. And the majority of people, I forget the number, but the majority of people want a more progressive person. About it, Biden ran on being able to talk to both sides of the aisle to get things done. But as we can see, there's Mitch McConnell and other people on the other side who will block that at any time, at any given day. And so, I don't know, I just feel like we need someone not afraid to push and get on people's nerves and not afraid to push an agenda. But you're absolutely right, Demi. We've got to be careful, even with that being said, because we can't have Donald Trump back in office. And the fact that Donald Trump is even an option after we're having a whole insurrection, trial, whatever you want to call it, going on right now. And it's still at the top of the list. That's an entire problem by itself.
And just one more piece that I have to add here, too. No one is ever going to be 100% happy because Barack Obama was younger. That was not good enough. He's black. That was not good enough. Kamala Harris, she's half black. You know, it's just like, it's never going to be good enough, no matter what your demographic is, no matter what your race is, your age is. It's just never going to make everybody happy.
Right.
Let's just have the best person for the job.
Right.
And right now, I do believe that Joe Biden is doing an okay job. Speaking of the Biden administration, the administration is also reminding doctors and hospitals that they need to follow federal law and provide abortions if there is a medical emergency and the health or the life of their patient is at risk. The Department of Health and Human Services says that those rules must be followed regardless of the state law. HHS officials say it's part of the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act that protects providers when offering legally mandated life or health-saving abortions. Doctors or hospitals who refuse to provide the procedures in emergency cases can be penalized. This announcement, it follows President Biden's executive order Friday on reproductive health, all a response to the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is renewing pleas for voters to get to the polls for the midterm elections. The call comes as progressives have complained about the White House's slow reaction to the gutting of Roe v. Wade. Harris says Democrats must elect a pro-choice Congress to enable lawmakers to codify abortion rights. The vice president also pointed to down-ballot state and local races in red states where abortion restrictions have already taken place or may in the future.
And the Department of Education is releasing sweeping regulations aimed at improving student loan relief programs. The department says the Biden administration is working on improving the student loan system for the long term. The Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, says if a borrower qualifies for relief, it shouldn't take mountains of paperwork or a law degree to obtain it. Now, the Education Department says it can remove interest capitalization and broaden relief options for people with disabilities. I don't know. I'm really not sure what to think. What I didn't hear is loan forgiveness plan for up to $10,000 or $20,000. And so, but I do like that they are trying to figure out a way to improve student relief programs. Because if you have ever filled out one of those papers, my mother sends them to me all the time when she sees, okay, here's a program that you can get in to help your student loan relief to kind of work off your relief to get forgiveness. But a lot of those loans, a lot of those relief programs, you have to go into public service, and then you fill out like a mountain of paperwork after you go into public service for 5 years. They want you to volunteer in Africa for 5 years, and then when you come back, they take off $5,000 for maybe every year you were in Africa. I'm exaggerating, but that's how it feels.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it shouldn't be like that. There should be programs where the average person who doesn't have to go into public service can work off the loan if that's the case. So I'm happy to hear that they are improving the process, and hopefully it'll be something that everybody can benefit from. But I still would like that $10,000, that $50,000 that Biden campaigned on.
Altogether.
Absolutely.
You know, black women, we bear the brunt. We have the most money outstanding right now when it comes to student loans and student loan forgiveness. We need it the most, and we're just simply out here trying to get a piece of the American pie like everybody else. And here we are with the most debt, and it's really sad to see. Now, I know I was just like tooting my horn about how great Joe Biden is doing, but you guys know when I get about student loans, it's a totally different story. But however, I switched gears for a second. I'm going to be honest about that. But I do believe that, yes, Mimi, it does feel like you have to sell a piece of your soul just to try to work off $2,000 when it would have been much better. A blanket, at least $10,000. Even the 50 might have been a stretch because not everybody has $50,000. But $10,000 off of your student loan debt would have helped a lot. A transparent moment here, my mom took out student loans for me to go to college. So $10,000 would help me and my moms separately. You know, it would just help so many people. Like it seems like a small thing to ask for.
And I'm going to say this real quick. It's all about a numbers game. So $10,000 in borrowers, if they can take care of that money for Americans, it's going to be about $321 billion. We have the money. I don't want to hear that we don't have it, because when it comes to helping other people across the world, we can find that money and make it happen. We can do it here.
Well, we sent that to Ukraine.
Yes.
Just
Come on
saying.
now.
Mimi has been upset about that.
I'm just saying.
That money sits in-
I'm just saying. My mother got on me about that. She said, "So what? We're not supposed to help people in Ukraine?" And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying both can be possible
Yes.
at the same time.
We
That's
can
all I'm
find a way to
saying.
make that
Yes.
happen. We got to be able
Yes.
to take her home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe he's felt the way about since that wire made its way to Ukraine. She's felt the way about that. While many American politicians are working on ways to reduce gun violence in the country, an Arizona Republican House candidate, he wants to make rifles great again. Jerron Davison's new campaign commercial is going viral right now, and it shows him ready to shoot Klansmen with a rifle. He is dressed and posed like the iconic photo of Malcolm X peeking through window blinds with an M1 rifle.
But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen angry Democrats in Klan hoods, you just might need that semi-automatic.
Davison is a former NFL player with no political experience. His video has garnered 4 million views since last week, and Davison's commercial is pushing a debunked story that Democrats founded the Ku Klux Klan in the 1860s. But many ex-Confederate soldiers joined the Democratic Party that at the time was anti-black.
The Department of Transportation is launching a $1 billion first-of-its-kind pilot program that reconnects cities and racially segregated neighborhoods divided by road projects. The Reconnecting Communities program allows cities and states to apply for federal aid over 5 years. It will rectify harm caused by roadways that were built through low-income black areas. African-American communities around the nation were destroyed by interstate highways that forced people to leave their homes. The new projects could include rapid bus transit lines that will link lower-income neighborhoods to jobs.
And a Louisiana State Police superintendent is in trouble after he was pulled over for speeding in an unmarked work car. Colonel Lamar Davis says he accepts responsibility for the incident. Now, body cam footage of the traffic stop cuts off as soon as the trooper gets out of the car and realizes he's pulled over his boss. Now, because he was the boss, Davis did not get a ticket, but says the decision of the trooper not to ticket him falls within state police guidelines. But Davis admits he needs to learn how to slow down.
Stacey Abrams is on a fundraising roll. The Democrat who was running for Georgia governor for the second time has raised $50 million for her campaign. In several months, $21 million of that in the last 2 months. Now, that's millions more than current Governor Brian Kemp has raised. He's taken in $31 million for his campaign. Kemp has $18 million currently on hand, and Abrams' One Georgia fundraising committee allowed her to collect unlimited contributions. Recent polls show the candidates in a dead heat.
A Kentucky prison inmate is filing a lawsuit against prison officials for forcing him to cut his locks. Carlos Thurman is suing the North Point Training Center after his hair was cut by a guard in April. Thurman, who is practicing Rastafarian, has raised grievances in the past against the prison's policy of hair being searchable. The prison also bans braids and cornrows. If an inmate refuses to have their hair searched, then guards are ordered to remove it. Thurman says if a white inmate with long hair fights a black inmate with locks, cornrows, or braids, the white prisoner can keep his hair, while the black inmate must have it removed. Okay, that's wrong right from the top when you think about that, right? So we already know racially profiling, even behind the walls, which is not a good thing. Now, I am hearing that once they did cut his hair, they didn't even search it. That's the part that bothers me. So he refused to let him search his hair. They cut it off, saying, okay, we cut it off because we want to search it, and you still didn't do that. To me, that says that you just want to have control and continue to have power over people.
Absolutely, Romeo. That's an excellent point. You know, the warden issued this ruling in February of 2021. So what is considered searchable hair? Right. That's the basis for everything, right? So locks, braids. I read the memo that he sent out to the prison, and it says you must have searchable hair regardless of length, braids, cornrows, and dreadlocks. It makes no mention, though, of white people hair. So it's starting off sounding very racist because you're only targeting black people in this memo. And so you're right, when he was being transferred somewhere, and so when they got ready to search him, he said no because it was part of his religion. And that's why the ACLU is taking on this case, because one, that's part of his religion, and two, what is considered searchable hair. And then once they did cut his dreadlocks or his locks, they didn't even search it. So they were just doing this because they were just being racist.
Absolutely.
Period.
I agree.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. So the civil rights and news media organizations are condemning a new Arizona law that makes it illegal for people to record videos of police within 8 feet of an arrest. Governor Doug Ducey signed the bill into law last week. Critics say it will limit efforts at making law enforcement operations more transparent to the community. For more than a decade, people with cell phone cameras have captured police killings and abuse of unarmed black people around the nation. Now, the sponsor of the legislation says there is no reason bystanders should be within 8 feet of cops arresting people.
4 U.S. Border Patrol agents who were on horseback will face discipline over their treatment of Haitian immigrants in the Rio Grande River last September. The image of agents on horses forcing black people trying to get into the United States back in the water infuriated black people. In the video, you can see the agents using their reins to whip people. A 500-page investigative report says none of the agents hit the migrants, but it says that Texas State Police used excessive force and threatened the people back into the river. The report says several of the agents used poor judgment in confronting the migrants.
A white supremacist group marched in downtown Boston on the 4th of July. The group of about 100 known as Patriot Front walked from the old State House to City Hall Plaza. No one was arrested. Boston police say they got a report of a black man who says he was attacked by the group. Investigators say they are now reviewing recordings from the scene to identify the people involved. Patriot Front is the same group that police in Idaho arrested for planning a riot at a gay pride march.
And a Georgia man is suing the Alpharetta Police Department after he was severely bitten by a police dog during an arrest last year. Now, this is body cam footage of officers who were called to the house of Travis Moya. Now, Moya's wife, Cammie, called police to the residence saying her husband was acting erratic. When cops got to the scene, they asked him not to go into the house. Moya tried to go into the house, and that's when cops took Moya down to the ground. Now, police say the officers released the dog on Moya because he was acting aggressive. It attacked Moya as he was being held on the ground by officers. Moya says he has not been able to find work because of the injuries to his arm. He was charged with resisting arrest, but a Fulton County prosecutor eventually dropped the charges.
A medical examiner's report says Jayland Walker, the man who was shot 60 times, was handcuffed behind his back when his body was taken to the Akron City Coroner's office. Coroner photos show that Walker was handcuffed at the scene of his death in the coroner's office. Now, those photos were taken hours after 8 Akron cops, they shot Walker to death. Sources says that there were bullet holes in Walker from his ankle to his cheek on both sides of his body. A final autopsy has not been completed, and when it is, it will be given to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations. That office will determine if any criminal wrongdoing by the officers were committed. Even though I'm sure that there is a rule probably that somewhere that says if you're, because I was reading here that if you are shot by police, police will still handcuff you if they feel like you are dangerous and you can reach for guns, right? That makes sense. But this case, this man is no longer with us. And so his family is like, honestly, out of respect for loss of life, you could have just, it just added insult to injury. Literally, he died due to gun bullet holes in his face, his abdomen, and his upper legs. And so he's already dead. I could understand maybe if you felt like he was still alive and you wanted to handcuff him, but this man is no longer with us. It's just so inhumane. And I hope that a judge finds that this was absolutely inhumane to arrest him after him suffering 60 bullet holes inside of his body.
60 shots to his body, pronounced dead at the scene. You still want to put him in handcuffs. You still feel like that's okay. Like, again, humane, when you talk about that as a police officer, how would you want one of your loved ones to be treated in this situation? First of all, a life has been lost that probably shouldn't have been. And now to be treated like this just adds to insult. Very, very sad. Yeah.
This story is so hard to even talk about. Again, like everything always does, it starts with a traffic stop. I mean, he was shot at 90 times, 60 shots hit him. To handcuff him and to still do all of that, it's hard to even put in words. I know there have been protesters on the ground ever since this happened in Ohio, and his family is demanding justice. These officers should be fired, arrested, charged. thrown under the jail and everything else that comes with this. I mean, he was unarmed. He was an unarmed black man. Who knows why he ran from the police? Maybe he was scared of the exact thing that chased him down and that happened to him. So we can't judge there.
And also, if you are in Ohio, there also is a gathering tonight, a unity gathering in Akron, Ohio. So I encourage, if you want to go just and show your support, it would be lovely.
Definitely. All right, well, the founder of one of Chicago's most notorious street gangs is renewing his bid to undo his life sentence in prison. 71-year-old Larry Hoover, who was the former leader of the Gangster Disciples, is serving time in a supermax prison in Colorado. A U.S. judge last year denied his request to lower his sentence under the First Step Act. That law was signed by former President Trump that lowered some federal prisoner sentences. But the judge says Hoover can try again. Now, the Gangster Disciples terrorized black communities in Chicago for years with its drug dealing and violence.
An inquest jury in Washington state found 2 Seattle cops were justified in the shooting death of a mentally unstable pregnant black woman who was shot to death in 2017. Police say Charlena Lyles, a mother of 4, was inside her apartment threatening cops with knives. The 6 King County coroner's inquest jurors determined the officers, who were all white, had no alternative but to use deadly force against Lyles. Now, her family is angered with that decision. The cops say Lyles lunged at them with a knife after calling them about a burglary. Lyles was 15 weeks pregnant when she died. The juror said even if cops used a taser, they would have not been able to stop Lyles from attacking them. I don't understand how that's possible. You know, it's just... You know, we do these stories over and over and over again. There's so many problems here. It's she had a mental illness. We've seen cops arrest people. 4th of July, the white guy who opened fire from the rooftop into the parade in Chicago. They took him alive. You know, it's like we've seen it happen. She had a knife. She had mental illness. Whatever the case was, there's no reason why. And this jury that found these cops justified, I want to know, was it an all-white jury? Like, I just don't understand how you could find this justified. When this happened, she had her kids in the house. One of her babies walked out crawling on top of her, and another child walked out and said to the police, "You shot my mother." You know what I mean? And we're talking about kids, and not to mention she was 15 weeks pregnant. There is just no human decency when it comes to us, like to shoot us in front of our kids. Like there's just no compassion whatsoever when it comes to stories like this and how they see us. It just continues to happen over and over again, and I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I mean, these are hard socially deliverable soulmates. That's why we're here. It's important that we bring this to life so you can understand what's going on, so we know we're fighting for moving forward.